大家好，歡迎收睇呢一集節目。到禮拜三又同大家議事論事啦。嗱，英國國會嘅傳統咧就係每逢禮拜三正午12點鐘，大概有30-40分鐘嘅時間，就俾各黨嘅議員咧就質問首相啊。咁咧英文就叫 Prime Minister Question 嚇。咁啊應該咧就係由其他議員質問呢個首相嘅嚇。不過有時咧首相都要問翻其他議員啦。咁啊就呢個係可以話係每個禮拜國會嘅高峰期啦。咁啊即係除咗休會期間咧，咁基本上都有噶啦。咁咧今日亦都同大家分享翻今日 PMQ 裏面咧討論咗啲咩嘢話。大致上咧，工黨咧就係提出嘅問題咧就同盧旺達政策有關嘅，而蘇格蘭民族黨 SNP 咧即係國會裏面嘅第二大反對黨提出嘅問題就係同呢個係移民有關嘅，咁可能咧好多香港人咧都關注啊。咁啊，所以咧我就首先咧就分享咗咧 Stephen Flynn 啊嗰兩條問題先，然之後咧工黨施紀賢Keith Starmer 咧嘅問題，我都會揀2-3條咧同大家一齊講講嘅。咁啊，事不宜遲啦，睇下 Stephen Flynn 咧今日講嗰啲咩先啦嚇。
The Scottish nationalist, Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Is the Prime Minister worried that he is projected to be the first Conservative Party leader to lose a general election to a fellow Thatcherite?
Stephen Flynn 咧去問嘅問題咧就係話首相你擔唔擔心咧成為即係第一個喺呢個大選裏面咧連自己個議席都輸俾人啦，而且咧係輸俾一個係戴卓爾黨喎，當然冇戴卓爾黨啦，即係戴卓爾派嘅一個人物咧。喂，呢個咧其實暗示緊，所以咩戴卓爾派其實係講緊呢個工黨呢個反對黨主要反對黨嘅黨魁施紀賢較早時咧曾經係讚揚過戴卓爾喎，咁所以咧佢係暗示咧會唔會輸俾呢一個施紀賢啊？
We really must hear the Prime Minister, and we've got a lot of questions to get through. It's not the Prime Minister's opponents who are giving him trouble. Prime Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I say to the honourable gentleman, Margaret Thatcher's view was cut inflation, then cut taxes, and then win an election, and that's very much my plan.
辛偉誠嘅答案咧非常之短，佢話咧就係戴卓爾嘅主張就係話首先減通脹，跟住咧就減稅嚇，跟住咧就贏出大選嚇，就係咁樣樣啦。咁佢話咧而家呢個係佢做緊嘅嘢。
Of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's not just in relation to Margaret Thatcher where the Tory and Labour leader appear to agree. The same is true of the government's latest migration policies. Now, for those of us on these benches, we aren't afraid to say that we believe migration is a good thing. It enriches our communities, it enriches our economy, it enriches our universities, our schools, our health service, and of course, our care sector. So in that regard, can I ask the Prime Minister, why does he think it is acceptable to ask people to come to these shores to care for our family members, whilst we show complete disregard for theirs? What has become of this place?
施紀賢就話咁似乎保守黨同工黨領袖唔同意咧，唔單止係同意咧，唔單同意或者唔同意啦，就唔單止咧呢個戴卓爾嘅呢個主張嚇。咁咧而家政府最新嘅移民政策咧都係咁樣嚇。咁對於佢哋即係坐喺呢邊嘅人啦，即係講 SNP 啦，蘇格蘭民族黨嚟講嚇，咁我哋根本咧就唔害怕話即係移民咧會有啲咩問題嚇。咁因為咧移民咧就係即係令到我哋嘅經濟咧就係好咗啦嚇，豐富咗我哋社區啦嚇，亦都豐富咗我哋嘅經濟，亦都豐富咗我哋嘅大學學校同埋衛生服務，仲有咧係我哋嘅護理部門嚇。呢一方面咧，佢就問呢個首相點解佢認為咧即係啲人特登遠道重洋嚟到英國照顧我哋即係英國嘅老人家啦嚇，長者啦屋企人啦嚇。咧我哋要求人哋即係但係我哋咧就完全無視佢哋家人咧呢樣嘢係可以接受咧嚇。呢一個地方咧變咗咩地方咧嚇？
Well, Madam Speaker, it's completely wrong. No, as we've already said, we have a proud track record of welcoming those who are most vulnerable around the world. Over 500,000 over the past few years from Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Hong Kong and elsewhere. And that's what this country will always do. But at the same time, when it comes to economic migration and other forms, it's absolutely right that we take strong action to curb the levels that we have seen because they are simply far too high and place unsustainable pressure on our public services. And Madam Speaker, I make no apology for saying that, or indeed saying that it is important that those who come here contribute to our public services.
辛偉誠嘅講法咧，就去對住施紀賢講咧，就話你完全錯晒啦。咁啊，正如我哋咧，即係話保守黨曾經講過啦，我哋歡迎咧嚟自全世界各地啊，即係一個係受迫害啦、最卓嘅人士啊。而呢方面咧，都有一個好令人自豪嘅紀錄啊。係話喺上嗰幾年咧，我哋就歡迎咗嚟自敍利亞、阿富汗、烏克蘭、香港同埋其他地方咧嘅50幾萬人喎。呢個咧就係呢個國家咧會做永遠係會做嘅對嘅事情啊。但係與此同時咧，當佢講到經濟移民或者其他形式嘅移民嘅時候咧，我哋即係話保守黨咧就要採取一個有力嘅措施，咁咧將呢一個移民嘅水平咧壓制到一個係我哋認為正確嘅水平啊。因為而家咧就實在太高啦，咁咧呢個咁高嘅移民咧就對個公共服務咧帶來不可以持續嘅壓力啊。咁佢對翻副議長女士就講啦，我咁講咧，我就唔會為即係保守黨做嘅任何嘢嘅呢方面嘅政策咧就道歉㗎啦嚇。因為咧認真咁講咧，佢話咧呢啲人咧就係嚟到英國咧係需要為我哋嘅公共服務咧做出好嘅貢獻，係呢樣嘢咧係好重要嘅嚇。呢個咧就係辛偉誠嘅講法啦。好啦，咁聽完呢個蘇格蘭民族黨啦即係嘅問題啦，咁跟翻咧就走翻去睇翻工黨黨魁嘅施紀賢啦，即係同辛偉誠之間有啲咩火花啦。
Leader of the Opposition, Sir Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's very good to see you in your place, and we wish the Speaker a speedy recovery. This week we lost two giants of the Labour family, and I thank the Prime Minister for his comments. Alistair Darling was a man of unassuming intelligence, warmth and kindness. He brought a calm expertise and, in private, a cutting wit, and devoted his love of his family was ever present. Our thoughts are with Maggie, his wife, Callum, Anna, who he loved so dearly. Glenys Kinnock was a passionate campaigner for social justice who changed lives home and abroad. She was a loving and supportive partner and mother, and her death is a huge loss to all of us. We are thinking of Neil, of Stephen, Rachel, and of all the family. Can I also echo the Prime Minister's comments in relation to Lord Douglas Hamilton? And in relation to the Hillsborough families, they deserve justice. In a previous capacity, I worked with the families. They waited a very, very long time for the findings, thanks to people in this House, and they've waited a long time for this response, but I'm glad it is now coming. Madam Deputy Speaker, if the purpose of the Rwanda gimmick was to solve a political headache of the Tories' own making, to get people out of the country who they simply couldn't deal with, then it's been a resounding success. After all, they've managed to send 3 Home Secretaries there, an achievement for which the whole country can be grateful. So, apart from members of his own cabinet, how many people has the Prime Minister sent to Rwanda?
施紀賢開波咧就係懷念翻兩個啱啱喺過呢個禮拜就過身嘅工黨前輩，一個咧 Alistair Darling 啦，另一個就 Glenys Kinnock 嘅。咁咧就佢詳細嗰部分咧我就唔翻譯啦，直入翻呢個係時事呢個主題啦。咁就係一開波咧就講到呢個盧旺達政策嘞喎嚇。嗱佢咧就話工黨黨魁施紀賢就話。如果盧旺達政策咧係一個派頭嚟嘅目的咧，就為咗解決保守黨自己製造嘅政治難題啊，咁咧就俾一啲咧係佢哋根本冇辦法對付嘅人咧就離開呢個國家，咁呢個就相當呢個巨大嘅成功啊，當然係反諷啦。咁畢竟咧佢就話保守黨咧成功將派咗3位咧內政大臣去嗰度啦，係一個舉國歡呼嘅成就啊。咁佢問下辛偉誠除咗自己嘅內閣成員之外咧呢個首相咧仲計劃可以派幾多人去盧旺達咧呢一個咧即係之前一個講法咧就係話英國送去盧旺達嘅內政大臣嘅數目係遠超過送去盧旺達嘅船民嘅數目因為後者咧而家都仲係0
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I've been clear before, we will do everything it takes. Mr. Speaker, we will do everything it takes to get this scheme working so that we can indeed stop the boats. And that's why this week we have signed a new legally binding treaty with Rwanda, which together with new legislation will address all the concerns that have been raised, because everyone should be in no doubt about our absolute commitment to stop the boats and get flights off. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, and this is the crucial point that the Honourable Gentleman doesn't understand, deterrence is critical. Even the National Crime Agency have said that you need an effective removals and deterrence agreement if you truly want to break the cycle of tragedy that we see. But what we heard this morning from his own ministers was that they would scrap the scheme even when it is operational and working. As again, once again, Mr. Speaker, once again, instead of being on the side of the British people, he finds himself on the side of the people smugglers.
好啦，辛偉誠咧就答翻佢啦嚇，咁佢講咗啲咩嘢咧嚇？咁咧佢就對住議長女士講咧，就話正如我哋之前講得好清楚，我哋將會盡一切努力啦嚇，令到呢個計劃發揮作用，咁咧令到我哋可以確實能夠停止呢一個船民啊，停止船民嚇。咁咧就係都咧就係點解咧？呢個禮拜我哋同盧旺達簽署咗一份具有法律約束力嘅國際條約，而新嘅立法咧就會一次過咧解決提出嘅所有問題啊！咁因為咧每個人咧都唔應該懷疑我哋嘅工作啦，同埋咧呢一個係話會送呢一個船民去盧旺達嘅承諾啊！咁咧嚇，即係佢指呢一個反對黨啊施紀賢嘅觀點咧嚇，就根本就唔明白嚇而家做緊啲乜嘢嚇。咁辛偉誠就話咧最重要就係一個威脅嘅作用嚇。佢話甚至國家犯罪局都表示啊，一定要一個有效嘅清除同埋威脅嘅協議咧先至得嚇。咁咧如果你想咧就破壞呢一個，即係如果你打破呢一個惡性循環嘅話。咁但係咧，今朝我哋都喺呢個工黨嘅影子落角裏邊啦嘅大臣咧就聽到話，咁即係工黨裏邊咧就有影子大臣咧就講過啊，即使個計劃咧係運作同埋運作緊咧嚇有效嘅話咧，工黨咧上台之後咧都會廢除呢個計劃啦。咁佢咧就因此咧就批評工黨咧就唔係企喺人民嗰邊係，而係咧就將佢企喺同一個人口走私者嘅嗰一邊啦。
Madam Deputy Speaker, when they first announced this gimmick, they claimed Rwanda would settle tens of thousands of people. Then the Deputy former Prime Minister quickly whittled it down to mere hundreds. Then the Court of Appeal in June made clear there's housing for just 100. The current number of people sent there remains stubbornly consistent. 0. At the same time, Madam Deputy, Article 19 of the treaty says the parties shall make arrangements for the United Kingdom to resettle a portion of Rwanda's most vulnerable refugees in the United Kingdom. So how many refugees from Rwanda will be coming here to the UK under the treaty?
施紀賢咁講啦，咁咧就話當保守黨第一次宣布呢個派頭嘅時候咧，呢個派頭即係指盧旺達計劃啦。咁佢哋咧就當時係聲稱盧旺達計劃咧係會安置數以萬計嘅人嘅，數以萬計嘅人。咁但係咧嚇，即係之前嘅副總理啦嚇，咁好快咧就將個數目咧就減到去到幾百人啦。然之後上訴法院喺6月嘅時候咧就喺當時判決嘅時候咧，保守黨就明確表示，咁其實咧都係講緊100人嘅啫嚇。咁而家咧暫時即係可以送到盧旺達嘅數字咧，都係保持一致喎，就係0嚇。呢個咧就係施紀賢講法啦。咁同時咧，根據而家英國同盧旺達簽署嘅國際條約裡面嘅第19條規定啊，咁咧雙方面咧都要作出一個安排，咁咧就由英國接收喺盧旺達嘅部分難民喎，即係盧旺達嘅難民咧係有部分係會送去英國嘅。咁施紀賢咧就話，根據呢個條約啊，有幾多係嚟自盧旺達嘅難民咧會嚟到英國咧嚇。
Mr. Speaker, what? Madam Deputy Speaker, sorry.
Order, Prime Minister.
It addresses all the concerns of the Supreme Court, but It's a point of pride, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we are a compassionate country that does welcome people from around the world. But let me just get the honourable gentleman up to speed on what we are doing. Reduce the number of illegal arrivals from Albania by 90%. Increase the number of illegal working raids by 50%. Because of all the action, we've taken the number of small boat arrivals down by a third, Madam Deputy Speaker. But what is the honourable gentleman's plan? Because it comes down to he just simply doesn't have a plan to address this problem. But no, I'm probably being unfair because he does have a plan. It's to cook up a deal with the EU that would see us accept 100,000 illegal migrants.
好啦，辛偉誠點樣講咧嚇？咁咧就話嚇呢份協議咧就解決咗最高法院所提出嘅所有關切啊、所有質疑啊嚇。咁咧嚇值得驕傲嘅係咧，就我哋係一個英國啦，就係一個富有同情心嘅國家。咁但係咧就對方咧即係嗰陣時既然啦嚇，即係要俾佢理解翻我哋做緊嘅嘢嚇。咁咧佢就跟住咧就唔係直接講盧旺達啦，就講翻之前做嘅其他針對其他係船民嘅措施嚇。咁咧就辛偉誠咧就話其實已經係將阿爾巴尼亞嘅非法入境者嘅數目咧就減少咗90%㗎啦，呢個係嘅嚇。咁另外咧亦都係將呢個非法工作突擊檢查次數咧增加咗50%。咁由於採取咗呢啲措施啦，我哋已經係將小船嘅數目咧減咗1/3啦。嗱，呢個我補充一下先嚇，咁其實咧個船嘅數目應該就真係減咗1/3嘅嚇。不過咧嚇，即係有報道就話有啲船咧就大隻咗，咁所以咧啲船民嘅數目咧就冇減1/3啦。好啦，跟住去翻辛偉誠繼續講啦，咁咧就係話咧嚇，就係對方已經諗緊啲咩咧嚇，咁其實歸根究底啦，佢哋根本咧就冇即係講工黨咧根本就冇辦法咧去解決呢個問題，完全冇計劃去點樣解決呢個問題嚇。咁咧嚇我咁樣對我哋咧就唔公平，因為佢哋啦。我哋咧有計劃啦，佢就冇計劃啦。咁唯一一個計劃咧就係同歐盟達成一個協議嚇，咁令到英國接收10萬名嘅非法移民嚇。咁移民數字咧人數就會增加咗2倍。呢個咧就係佢哋所做咧就係編造工黨嘅數字嚇。好啦，咁呢一個咧就係呢一度咧嚇，即係關於呢一部分咧嚇，我都補充少少嚇。關於呢一個咧嚇，究竟工黨同歐盟嗰個協議咧嚇，咁其實而家就實話都未一撇嘅嚇。咁至於10萬名呢個接收10萬名難民呢樣嘢啦，其實似乎咧都唔係好有實質證據去支持嚇。咁所以呢一點咧嚇，大家要保留一下。咁繼續睇下施紀賢啦點樣回應翻。
Migration's trebled on his watch, and all he can do is make up numbers about the Labour Party. It's really pitiful. I'm not actually sure the Prime Minister can have read this thing. Article 4 says the scheme is capped at Rwanda's capacity. That's 100. Article 5 says Rwanda can turn them away if they want. Article 19 says we actually have to take refugees from Rwanda. How much did this fantastic deal cost us?
Prime Minister.
嗱，施紀賢嘅問題咧好簡單嘅啫嚇，咁咧就係講咗幾句嚇。第一咧就話移民數字增加咗2倍啦 ，double 咗啦，咁即係話由之前嘅20幾萬啦，增加去到60-70萬啦，唔止2倍啊。咁咧嚇，即係佢話保守黨唯一可以做嘅話咧，就係即係亂咁作啲數字呃工黨啦，即係講緊頭先嗰10萬名嗰個數字嚇，我話真係可憐嚇，佢咁講嘅。咁施紀賢咧繼續講啦，我就唔係好肯定啦，首相係咪讀過呢件事啦？咁就係攞翻嗰條呢個英國盧旺達國際協議咧，就攞嚟講啦嚇。咁咧就話第4條規定呢個計劃咧就話盧旺達處理嘅能力嘅上限咧係100人啦，100個船民嘅啫嚇。第5條咧就話如果盧旺達想嘅話咧，可以將呢啲船民咧拒之門外嘅嚇，即係唔俾佢入去嘅。第19條咧就話咧嚇，咁英國實際上咧係必須要接收由盧旺達嚟嘅難民嚇，即係英國要接收翻盧旺達嘅難民啦。呢筆神奇呢個咧就係佢嘅講法。究竟佢又問一下呢筆神奇嘅交易啦，究竟我哋使咗幾多錢咧嚇
？Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Home Secretary was crystal clear about, there is no incremental money. There is no incremental money that has been provided. This about is ensuring that the concerns of the Supreme Court have all been addressed in a legally binding treaty that will allow us to operationalise the scheme. But I'm glad he raised the topic of legal migration, which I agree is absolutely far too high, Madam Deputy Speaker. That's why this week we've outlined a plan bigger than any other government before to reduce the levels of legal migration by £300. It's an incredibly comprehensive plan. So if he cares so much about it, the simple question for him is, does he support the plan?
好啦，咁啊，辛偉誠咧就反擊啦，咁咧就話嚇，正如內政大臣啦，侯飛好清楚咁講過啦，咁就其實呢一個新嘅協議咧就冇額外係要俾多咗錢嘅嚇，咁你唔需要提供額外嘅資金啦，亦都係即係確保咗所有嘅最高法院嘅擔心嘅問題咧，而家都係解決咗噶啦。而呢一項咧係一個有法律約束力嘅條約裏邊咧，就令到我哋可以實施呢個盧旺達計劃嚇。咁佢又就話咧好開心啦，就工黨提出咗呢個合法移民嘅問題喎嚇。咁佢就話同意呢個話題咧，實在個數字咧實在太高啦。咁咧就係呢個禮拜點解我哋推出一個係比任何以前推出過更大嘅計劃嘅原因嚇，要將合法移民嘅水平咧降低30萬人嚇，呢一個非常全面嘅計劃嚇。如果係工黨真係關心呢樣嘢咧，咁啊應該嚇佢哋要回答一個問題，係咪支持政府而家提出呢一個大減呢一個係合法移民嘅計劃啊
？Madam Deputy Speaker, he clearly hasn't read it. And Annex A says on top of the 140 million he's already showered on Rwanda, when we send people there under this treaty, we have to pay for their accommodation and their upkeep for 5 years. And that's not all. This morning, a government minister admitted that anyone we send to Rwanda who commits a crime can be returned to us. I'm beginning to see why the Home Secretary says the Rwanda scheme is something to do with bats, I think, wasn't it? What does he first think attracted Mr. Kagame to hundreds of millions of pounds for nothing in return?
司機咁樣講啦，咁就話好明顯啦嚇，辛偉誠就冇睇過份文件啦嚇。佢話份文件嘅 A 咧嚇 ，NSA 附件 A 就話咧嚇，即係除咗佢已經要向為盧旺達就提供1億4千萬英鎊之外咧，當英國根據呢個條約將船民送去盧旺達嘅時候，咁英國必須支付佢哋嗰啲船民啦未來5年嘅住宿同埋生活費用嚇。咁仲唔係全部喎？咁今日朝頭早咧一個政府嘅部長啦大臣就承認啦。我哋如果將啲人送去盧旺達嘅話咧，如果嗰個人後來喺盧旺達犯咗罪咧，咁就可以遣返翻去英國喎嚇。咁佢開始咧明白呢個內政大臣啊點解之前話呢一個盧旺達計劃咧係一個瘋狂嘅計劃，可以唔係咁講嘅嚇，即係佢講咗瘋狂計劃咧，英文裏面咧講咗一半嘅啫嚇，不過都係咁樣講噶啦。佢話咧即係佢最初係認為乜嘢吸引咗卡加梅咧，即係盧旺達嘅總統啦。哇咁筍嘅咧，話收幾億英鎊係其實係乜都唔使做嘅咧啊！
Listen, I've slightly lost the thread of the question, Madam Deputy Speaker. But the simple point is, there's a simple question here. If you believe in stopping the boats, as we on this side of the House do, you need to have an effective deterrence and returns agreement. It's as simple as that. The honourable gentleman is not interested in stopping the boats, which is why he's not interested in the Rwanda plan. In fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that they don't want to tackle this issue because even when this government was trying to deport foreign national offenders out of this country, they opposed it. Multiple members of his shadow front bench all signed a letter to me to that effect. But I don't need to tell him that because he signed it too.
司機然就反駁啦嚇，咁咧就話好遺憾啦，佢最初就好似唔好理解到辛偉誠反駁咧，就好似最初唔好理解司機然嘅呢個問題。不過唔緊要啦，簡單啲嚟講啦，佢話一個好簡單問題啫嚇，你如果相信你要阻止嗰啲船民嘅話咧嚇，就好似我哋呢一邊啦，即係保守黨嗰邊啦，即係所做嘅嘢嚇，要一個咧有效嘅、有威懾嘅嚇，同埋咧就將呢個船民遣返嘅協議就係咁簡單啦。咁咧似乎對方即係工黨咧對呢個係stop the boats 啊，即係話減少船民咧就冇乜興趣喎。咁佢話就算點解佢哋對呢個盧旺達計劃冇咁感興趣啦嚇，咁咧就係其實佢哋咧都唔知點樣可以解決呢個問題喎，因為咧嚇當政府試圖將一啲外國嘅罪犯驅逐出境嘅時候咧，佢就指工黨嘅前座嘅議員咧就反對佢啊，咁包括好多個影子嘅大臣咧簽咗一封信俾辛偉誠啊，佢又冇講係咩啦嚇，但係咧當時應該係有嘅，咁咧就不過佢話咧唔使話俾司機然聽啦，因為司機咧自己都係簽咗字嚇。 嗱，今日嘅節目咧，我就講到呢一度啦嚇，咁啊，其他都有唔同嘅好精彩嘅內容噶，不過咧時間關係咧，我就唔一一同大家仔細講啦。我諗最重要咧都係頭先講咗嗰兩部分啦。咁啊，希望大家支持啦嚇，麻煩大家臨走之前咧撳翻 like 先啊。如果仲未訂閱胡思頻道咧，撳翻個訂閱掣啦。咁啊，大家有咩意見啊、問題啊，不妨喺留言嗰度寫低喎。咁我都會盡量咧就睇晒佢，同埋會覆翻大家嘅。拜拜。